York's classic rock, Q1043.
Welcome back. Jonathan Clark in the studio with perhaps the most interesting man in the world. Forget about that beer commercial. You know the one I'm talking about. But he is right in front of me right now, and his name is Bruce Dickinson, of course, from Iron Maiden and so many other things. How are you, my friend?
I'm okay, actually.
The new book, Bruce Dickinson, What Does This Button Do? It's an autobiography. All the book signings and events at ironmaiden.com. So welcome to the show. And let's mention Book of Souls, live chapter on CD, vinyl, and DVD concert film coming out November 17th. Do I have that right?
Yeah, no, we're just giving this film away. It's just basically footage that we filmed for the screens. We did we do almost like I think it's about a 15 camera shoot.
Wow.
Every single night on stage.
Oh my God.
And we have a TV station backstage essentially.
Yeah.
And that's what goes up on the screens each night, either side of the stage. Obviously, we're just doing it for real on the stage. We just collated that together and thought, well, we'll just do a free full-length concert for people to go and have a look at. Obviously, the soundtrack's for sale.
So the shots that you see during the concert, are those the ones that will be in the film, or are they slightly different, maybe?
I have no idea. I haven't seen it. Obviously everything that gets filmed is recorded, but
Right.
you only see a fraction of the stuff that's up there. But there's God knows how many shows, so God knows how many hours of footage there is from each camera. So
Yeah. Also, the Bruce Dickinson solo works, all 6 albums now available on 180-gram vinyl. You can check that out on Bruce's website.
yes, it's a big box set.
Big box set.
Yeah.
And your website is screamforme.com.
And there's ironmaiden.com and all the rest of it.
Ironmaiden.com.
I think there's a big sort of store in there that does all this stuff if you want to get it online, the usual stuff. I have no idea. And you should see my mobile phone. I mean, I still use an old Nokia, so.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah, social media is a mystery to me. Other people figure it out.
Well, we got to say congratulations officially, because you are #1 in the UK with this book, knocking off the lady who ran for president in the United States last year.
Are you sure I'm knocking her off? Is that?
Oh, no. Okay. You beat her to the top of the charts.
I beat her. Oh no, we're just getting into
even that's bad. Yeah.
We can't even say that in these days. I usurped her. Perhaps.
Yes. Well, let's get to this book, because it's a great title to me, because it seems that really is a metaphor for you and the way you approach life. Maybe, the most interesting man, but also maybe the most curious, inquisitive man. What does this button do? And that's sort of, it seems from reading this book, how you've approached life. You're like, oh, let's try that. Yeah, we can do that. Let's try that. Why not?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, my dad, with whom I had a sort of a strange kind of ambivalent relationship, but I don't want to big it up that it was like horrible or abusive. It wasn't, but one of the great things he did for me was say you should have a go at everything, just try it, whatever it is. When you're a kid, if you get a chance to do something, or whether it's a school trip, whether it's whatever it is, just have a go. And the other thing that he was very big on was whenever you start something, finish it. So when I did things and discovered things that I thought, well, that's kind of cool. I like doing that. Let's see where it goes. I mean, in the words of Robert Plant, if you're going to squeeze the lemon, do it till the juice runs down your leg.
Well, your dad, and I was gonna get to that, because your dad was similar, because he was into fixing things. I know that he fixed old cars, and he was good at sort of machines and things like that.
Yeah,
too,
it
right.
Was, well, from when he's far better at it than I was. But I mean, but he had just this incredible affinity with mechanical things. So when he was
Some people are just good like that, right?
yeah, no, they just are, and he and I'm actually, it kind of runs in and around the family a bit, because one of my uncles was a flight engineer, and my godfather was a flight engineer in the RAF as well, and so this is, I'm sort of surrounded by engineers. I've no idea why I'm not an engineer, but I'm not. Although I appreciate good engineering, but you really wouldn't want to see a set of shelves put up by me.
Iron Maiden, close to 100 million albums sold. And this is an interesting anniversary because, and it happens every year, obviously, for the last 36 years. October 26, 1981, you first took the stage with the band in Bologna, Italy.
Uh,
Was that it?
Yes, it was actually, and now you've come to remind me. I had no idea it was my anniversary of being in Bologna.
Yeah. Do you remember that gig?
Yes, I do actually.
Okay.
I do, mainly because I bought a very large piece of Italian ham wrapped in shrink wrapped. And,
Really?
yeah, and realized that it was just a great folly because I never actually ate all of it, but I tried.
I want to show you this
kind of
photo.
exotic back in the day to do
Oh,
that sort
yeah.
of stuff.
Well, it sounds delicious. I'm hungry just talking
Yeah.
about it. This photo, I don't know if you saw this photo.
And I haven't seen it yet. You're still digging
Okay.
it up on your phone.
All right. So
Where is it?
here's this
show
photo.
me
Take
the
a look
photo.
at that photo.
Oh yeah, there you go. That's not fake news.
That's totally not fake. So the photo we're talking about is a meme that somebody created.
Okay. Yeah.
Showing
Oh, that is fake news.
the Obama inauguration, the Trump
Yeah.
inauguration, and then at the end it says Iron Maiden every show,
Well,
and it's
yeah.
a sold out like massive stadium.
Well, this politics is something I'm not going to dig into politics because, well, first of all, this is not my country, so this is not my circus, not my monkey, But I will say that the book is a kind of not a deliberate riposte to the current. I said this. Oh, you said that. Oh, you lied. Oh, you did this. You did that. The book is about stories and my life and the things I've done, and it's a celebration of life. It's not getting down on people. It's not salacious and tittle tattle. But for all that, there's some pretty good stuff in there. I think,
Yeah. And the book we're talking about, Bruce Dickinson, an autobiography. What does this button do? And I've read all the rock biographies. A lot of the story arcs are sort of very similar, but I sort of
cheerleader, lawsuit, divorce, large breasts,
right.
It's kind of tedious.
Sex, drugs, rock and roll, but I can't get enough of them.
Really?
I read them all, but yours
and
is
they're all the
different.
same.
but yours is different. I want
It
to ask,
is, yeah.
I want to ask you, were you one to read those sorts of books?
No.
Not at all.
I get past about the first
like Deep Purple or anything like that.
Well, I know the guys in Deep Purple, so
yeah.
I'm not sure. I know some. I know them, so I'm not sure what I'd learned from the biographies. Also, I'm not that crazy about biographies that are written by other people, by ghostwriters.
Right.
And so, I mean, if you're going to write a book, I think you should. In an ideal world, you should write it yourself. So it's your own. Quite literally your own voice coming through. The idea with this book is, if one of my favorite books was a book by an actor, an old British actor, a guy called David Niven.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
The Moon's a Balloon.
The first Bond, right?
Yeah.
Was he the first Bond?
No, he wasn't the first Bond.
Oh,
no.
he wasn't?
No, he wasn't. No, Sean Connery was the first Bond.
No, wait. I thought there was something similar to
No,
David
there
Niven.
was. David Niven did a spoof.
That's it. Yeah.
Did a spoof version of James Bond.
Okay, right.
Called Casino Royale.
Right.
With some automated flying birds at the end of it, which were dive bombers, flying dive bombing grouse, I believe, which actually was an inspiration for some characters in a novel that I did called The Adventures of Lord Iffy Boat Race. But we won't go there. Anyway,
but David Niven's book.
David Niven wrote a book called The Moon's a Balloon, and it was a huge bestseller. And when you read it, it was like sitting there with David Niven in the pub. Well, actually, no, David Niven, he was kind of aristocratic, so you'd be sitting on a yacht in the Mediterranean,
South of France or something,
drinking champagne. But it'd be like sitting there with him telling you stories about how he went surfing with Errol Flynn, or how he did this, or how he did that, and how he was in the war and the special forces. But it was all a little bit crazy and rather ironic, and and it was funny and wry and human, and it was like, wow, what a bunch of great stories. It'd be really fun to go and sit down and have a beer with that guy.
Right.
And I approached this book that in that way. I wanted to tell my story, but in a way which was uplifting. Because that's kind of who I am. I'm not interested in in like, the dark side. I might write songs about it, but
Right.
that's not me. That's my
A lot,
life,
a lot of bands tend to get into trouble when they're on tour. As Tom Petty sang, the waiting is the hardest part, waiting for that 2 or 3 hours on stage that you do. But this wasn't your thing because when you were not playing in or doing a show, you were fencing or you were learning to fly or you were doing all these other things. And this book you actually wrote in longhand.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, yeah. I'm a terrible typist. I mean, I'm two-fingered, sort of like hunt and
Hunt
peck.
and peck.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is, I absolutely can't stand seeing spelling mistakes on the page. So, given that I'd be, pretty disastrous in terms of spelling, given my typing skills, I'd be forever stopping and correcting it. Whereas when you write, the flow just seems to go down a lot easier. So I
Right.
used to write about, I suppose, about 12 to 1,500 words at a sitting.
Right.
And
And this
then,
was all during Book of Souls tour, or
no, a little bit before. I mean, I wrote 50% of the book in the pub. I'd go down the pub and I'd sit in the corner and I'd, have a couple of beers, make it last 2 or 3 hours. And at the end of that, I'd have, 1,500 words. And, in fact, a whole bunch of people have seen me writing the book and they're like, what are you doing? In fact, it was very interesting. I was writing the book, or I'd been making little notes in a notebook about things I was going to write in the book. And I've never been so pestered in all my born days. And funnily enough, but really often by some quite attractive women came up to me and said, what are you doing? I said, I'm writing. Well, what are you writing? I said, I just stuff,
right?
Well, what kind of stuff? And I said, well, why are you interested in what kind of stuff? No, read me something. I'm like, well, I'm not going to read you something. This is no, go on, read me something. I said, why do you want me to read you something? I'm just sitting here quietly. I don't even know who you are.
Right.
And you're suddenly thinking, writing a book is kind of sexy.
It is.
And because there's something mysterious about it. There's a
Yeah.
bit of magic happening, and people somehow seem to sense it,
And you weren't there with a laptop either. You were there
I would
like
sit there,
longhand in these
with
big pads of paper.
I had a
right?
candle and a quill pen. No, I didn't. But yeah.
That's a great image, though.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, so do I. But it'd be, I didn't.
So I have to ask you, when you first approached Maiden about you piloting the band around on tour on a plane that you were going to fly, what was their reaction?
Well, I was already an airline captain.
Yeah.
So I'd been flying commercially, professionally for probably 7 years by then. So they were used to the fact that I was off flying, holiday makers on, or flying for British Airways or flying for whoever the company was.
Australis or whatever.
Yeah. We had 11 aircraft, so we were kind of guns for hire. So we would go off on a 6-month contract for British Airways or for EasyJet or any one of several airlines, so they were used to the fact. So it was no problem me going and flying them. I used to actually fly them around in a small light aircraft with little twin propellers and things. A few years before that.
Right.
So they were quite comfortable with the idea of a big jetliner.
Well, it seems to me that would have saved a lot of money. I mean, on tour costs, right?
Well, I'm not sure if it saved a lot of money, but what it did do is it made it possible to do a lot of places that we couldn't have done otherwise.
Like flying regular commercial or whatever.
The equipment, we had the equipment and the band and the crew on the same airplane. So what it was a massive time saver. So it joined up the world like a big magic carpet.
Oh, right, yeah.
So instead of having to exclude places like Australia, New Zealand, India, all of Southeast Asia, because the connections in all those places are kind of inconvenient, not just for the passenger transport. That's not the issue. It's the freight transport that kills you.
Yeah.
Because hiring a freighter to get your equipment around, as in, hey, it's got to be there because we've got a show in 2 days, that is what kills you, because they see you coming and they go, oh, yeah, okay, you got to be there.
Right.
You've got to pay the big dollar. When you can freight stuff and you really don't care, we got a couple of weeks. So to put it on space available or you sea freight it, that's fine. But of course, we also got to pay 50 road crew. And road crew these days are not. It's not like the old days when you paid people and here's
beer.
a couple of beers. Road crew now are like seriously professional people, and they get paid very well, deservedly so. And so, you've got to tighten things up. So having the airplane made it possible to join up the world in a way that we couldn't have done any other way.
So you, along with people like Tom Cruise, Harrison Ford, John Travolta, have you ever like compared notes with those guys ever, or like sat in a room with
No,
them and talked about it?
I
Or
often think it'd be great to get to get us all out to some kind of little barbecue and just go and fly little airplanes all afternoon and
Yeah.
talk about nothing else but airplanes and just make sure there were no journalists
Oh.
within about 200 miles.
Right.
Shouldn't be too difficult to do if you're flying airplanes.
Exactly. So Gary Newman told me he once took you up in a
He
in a
did.
plane.
Gary Moon, I mean, he's a really good pilot, Gary Newman. And actually, he went up. It was at when he had an aerobatic World War II trainer.
Yeah.
That he was he did he was part of a display team, and he took me up in the back and he did his little display routine, and it was really cool actually. I mean, he was a great pilot. I was very happy. It was all safe and sound. The only issue was that there was only one parachute. So he said, "I hope you don't mind. I'm having that one."
Oh my God. We're with Bruce Dickinson, his new book, the memoir, What Does This Button Do? It's an autobiography. When you fly and you're just a passenger, is it weird? Are you always sort of making observations to your travel companions or anything?
No.
It's fine.
No, I'm fine. I get a book, read a book, chill out. I have to say, I very seldom use the the whatever the entertainment system is.
Oh, yeah.
I can't be bothered. But what I do is, I always have the map up. Just make me feel a bit more like,
Oh, I like the map too.
I love the map.
Yeah,
It doesn't
speed, airspeed, the whole thing.
Doesn't do much.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's quite wrong, but I won't go there.
Oh
But-
yeah, exactly.
But often, you do notice things occasionally. You look out the window and you see what's going on with the, with the weather or the traffic, and you sort of go, oh yeah, okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
And you and sometimes you do form the odd opinion about the captain or the whoever's doing the landing, and you think, yeah, I did a pretty good job, because you realize that things are a little bit tricky, and some passengers might not realize
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
what's exactly going on, but you think, yeah, the guy did a pretty good job there.
I wanted to ask you because I was late to the game on this movie, but I watched the Sully Sullenberger movie.
Yeah.
With Tom Hanks.
Yeah. Fabulous. Got one of the best lines, one of the best end lines of a movie that I thought it was absolutely brilliant. And Clint, I think, did a great job directing it. But my favorite line in the movie is when they've run through all the tapes, and it's quite clear that once you throw in a real human being, and don't assume that everybody is just some kind of automaton, that the guy had it absolutely nailed.
Right.
And they turn to the first officer and they say, "Is there anything you would have done differently?" And he says, "Yeah, I'd have done it in July."
Yeah, exactly. That's a great
line.
Have you ever been close to a situation like that where, the potential of tragedy could have happened? I mean,
no.
good. Well, we're happy about that.
No. Nothing even remotely like what happened to him. I mean, I've had bird strikes, but I haven't taken one in the engine. I've had them in the cockpit, and a buddy of mine took an African vulture that bent the landing gear.
Wow.
But that's not a really important bit of the landing gear. But we were stuck in Africa for 2 or 3 days while we sent a part down to fix it. Windows shattering, decompressions and things like that, emergency descents. Those are all things that you train for. I mean, they sound like, oh my God,
Right. Yeah.
but actually these are things you train for in the simulator, and when they happen, they I don't know, it's you think, oh goodness me, we seem to have a decompression on our hands. Well, it's pretty clear what you have to do here, folks.
Right. Yeah.
And down you go. And that's that.
Yeah.
Pretty
Would
much.
you ever want to go into space?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I wanted to go into space since I was the kid that that was brought up with Sputnik and Yuri Gagarin and the first Russian into space, and then
Right.
you
The
know
space race.
I
Yeah.
followed everything. I mean, when Apollo 13 happened for real. I mean, normally like 10 o'clock at night was like or before that, I think was like my bedtime when I was that age.
Yeah.
And I wish I could find them now. I actually sat up because TV is kind of unprecedented. They actually had like 24-hour TV, basically staying up all night covering the Apollo 13, story. And I pretty much almost stayed up all night and got up like super early the next morning. And I took notes on everything and made sketches of everything and stuff. I was
wow.
so totally into space. I loved it, you know.
Oh, you got to call up Elon Musk.
Yeah, well, I've got to be able to afford one of his cars.
Book
first.
a seat. Book a seat on the flight.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Well, you know, it would be no. I think low cost access to space. If you know, not just space tourism, but you know, low cost satellite and low cost payload into space is the next frontier. you
Yeah.
know. I don't think it's ever going to be. It's never going to be like getting on an airliner.
Right.
That I think is kind of like that's fantasy island.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, I think it will come down in price a lot. And you know, anytime you strap your ass to a firework, you know, there's a risk. You know?
Yeah. Do you remember the first time you came to New York City? And was there one thing that you absolutely had to do as soon as you got here?
Uh, I- the first time I came to New York City, completely overwhelming, and I just went for a walk around the block, and I just thought I was in a movie set.
Was this Times Square?
No, just anywhere. It's
Just
like-
anywhere.
and just stand on the corner of any city block in and around sort of like downtown Manhattan, and especially if it was like winter where you've got all the steam coming out of the manholes and everything. Just go and buy yourself a cup of coffee, stand on a street corner, and just think any minute now it's the French Connection, and Popeye Doyle is going to walk out of that building. It's New York. It's great. What a place.
That's what they say. That's why a lot of people shoot movies here because New York City is the best co-star you could ever get in a film.
I mean, you don't need a set. Every street corner is a set.
I just want to talk about the cancer briefly, which you battled and won. The way you describe this and your approach to it with such an amazing attitude. Again, it was painful. It was incredibly uncomfortable. But you were so proactive on your research, and you detail all of this in the book really, really well. And it's almost like a how-to-behave guide if you ever, God forbid, get this horrible disease.
Yeah. Obviously, there are different sorts of cancers, and I was very lucky that mine was incredibly susceptible to the treatment. But the treatment itself, like with most cancers, the treatment itself is pretty unpleasant, and a lot of people suffer more from the treatment than the actual cancer itself. Along
The chemo
on the road to assuming you have a good outcome. Actually, the treatment was worse than the initial cancer, because when I got the diagnosis, I didn't feel sick. I mean, somebody's just told you got cancer, and you're going, okay,
I feel great. What's up?
I might die, but I don't feel like I'm going to die. Not tomorrow, not next week. So when does all this kick in? You're in this kind of this weird altered state, like an out of the body experience. And funnily enough, it's the same feeling when you get told, "Yep, you're all clear. It's over," and you go, "It can't be. I've just spent like 6 months of my life, in this world of like nothing. This weird world of I've got to fight this. It's like your constant companion, and now somebody's told you that this thing that was with you is gone, and it's almost like Stockholm syndrome, where the people are held hostage in a bank and they fall in love with the hostage takers, and it's almost like that with cancer. It's like I almost miss it, and you think, what a dumb thing to think. How can you think that? But you have to fess up to those sorts of things,
Right.
I treated it like an uninvited guest. And I was like, politely and firmly, I'm going to ask you to leave with the assistance of my friends here, from Mr. Chemo and Mr. Radiotherapy. They are going to ask you to leave. They're going to be my bouncers, and you are going to be walking out the door. Uh, all in the best possible taste, because, cancer is part of you. It's your cells gone weird and wobbly for whatever reason. And I actually asked my ear, nose, and throat doc. I said, why? I said, why me? I don't smoke. I don't do drugs. I drink a few beers. I said, why me? And she said, it's just bad luck.
Yeah.
It's bad luck. That's the best you can do. Bad luck. And she went, yeah. I went, okay. Because you want to blame somebody. You want to blame something, somebody.
I did this and that's why.
I did that and that's why. Yeah. Or he said, if this had happened, then I wouldn't have got it. No, it's just bad luck. And actually, if you can accept that, then I think you're well on the way to being in a good headspace.
That seems like that's half the battle almost, right?
I think so. You have to let the treatment take its course, and you have to try and make sure you stay strong and well during the treatment. And there's a variety of things you can do to help depending on what the treatment is and things. But and my oncologist was brilliant, because I said, look, I'm going to be taking all these weird supplements, and my wife was brilliant. She went and researched them all, and I came along with this great list of stuff I was going to take. And he said, yeah, he said, that all looks fine. He said, just anything you think helps, terrific. He said, but just make sure. He said, I'm not joking. He said, just make sure there's no heavy metal in there.
Yeah.
And I said, you're kidding me, right? He said, no, I'm not. He said, that'll, no iron supplements, copper, manganese, all that stuff. He said, no. He said, that could potentially screw up the treatment. I went, okay, none of that, and because the chemo they were using is platinum based. So you're shoving your body full of platinum, and observing the book. I said, I spent years getting platinum albums, and now I'm turning into one.
Bruce Dickinson is with us. His autobiography, What Does This Button Do? We were speaking of beer before. How many pints of Iron Maiden's Trooper beer have been sold now?
Well, we've sold 100 million albums in 30 years, but we've sold 18 million pints in 3 years. So we're catching up.
Wow, that is fantastic.
Yeah.
And you kind of made that beer, like you weren't just like, oh, let me just slap a Bruce Dickinson Iron Maiden label on the bottle.
No. It's not what we do.
You really went into it hard.
No, we're onto our fourth brew now, our fourth type of beer. Obviously, we have our flagship, which is Trooper. That's we're never going to not brew Trooper. The other beers come and go as guest beers. We've got a fabulous porter stout thing called Red and Black, which is seasonal. And we've just brewed our latest one, which is called Hallowed, which is a Belgian British ale hybrid.
Ooh, that sounds good.
6% Belgian British ale hybrid. And Robinsons, who've been brewing for 140 something years, they think it's the best beer they've ever brewed.
Wow.
And I was like, you're kidding me. And they went, no, and that's really high praise coming from them, And it's not me brewing it. I came up with the ideas. We did the tastings together, and then I have to leave it up to
the master
brewer,
Yeah.
And then we come it together at the end, and and fiddle around with it a little bit, and then we go and put the labels on it and figure out the marketing around it, and then we go and drink it. And that's the fun bit.
The Iron Maiden T-shirt and other bands' T-shirts actually very popular. They've almost become fashion accessories.
Well, they're cool. They're cool things.
They are totally cool things.
So eventually, eventually somebody is going to take something like that. It's like Marvel Comics for a while. When I was a kid, a long time ago, nobody thought Marvel Comics were cool. They were like trash. So people would trash them all the time. It's like, oh my God, you read those Marvel comic rubbish things. That's and all of a sudden they became pop art. And now they're like iconic images of a certain time. So things do, move on up through the years.
And the Maiden concerts now, and for a while, you will have the hardcore fans that have been here since the early 80s, and you will also have young fans really like teenage
Yeah.
boys come to the shows, and that doesn't really happen to a lot of bands.
No, Iron Maiden fans are like plywood. You know, we have laminate layers of them, and they stick to one another. You know, and every few years we add a few more layers, and the table gets thicker and stronger, and people come along to shows and say, "Wow." You know, back in the day in the 80s, we'd do like one show at the Garden, you know, and now we've just done 4 shows in the New York area.
Yeah.
So how come we're 4 times bigger than we were in the 80s? You know, we haven't suddenly grown a whole bunch of people, dare I say it, of my age, you know, because people of my age, as I pointed out at the shows, we are kind of slowly diminishing, you know.
Yeah.
May you diminish less, you know, but it's kind of inevitable. So what we're doing is building up this great new fan base of kids who discovered a lot of kids will have discovered Maiden with this last album, Book of Souls.
Book of Souls,
and they'll
yeah.
go back and rediscover all the mythology of the band. So it's brilliant to have that.
Well, we look forward to a lot more. His name is Bruce Dickinson. What Does This Button Do is the autobiography. It is fantastic. Everyone go buy it. You will not be disappointed. It is a brilliant read. Bruce, thank you so much for giving us a few minutes.
Thank you very much.
New York's classic rock, Q1043.